Alright, we ready, everybody? Yeah. So the folks who are outside, welcome from one of the worst outdoor athletic facilities in Central Mass to one of the nicest indoor parts of a high school in Central Mass. It's a beautiful school, and Peter Lukasik is one of our guests tonight, who's with SMA, who actually designed this field as well as designed the high school. So appreciate having Peter here. Dr. Mary Malone as well, Superintendent of Schools. Cheryl Simmons, one of our school committee members. Bob Osterrecker, who's on our Fields Committee representing Shirley. Doug Preston, who from AIR representing AIR in the Fields Committee. Michelle Granger, school committee member. Steve Kendall, athletic director. Keith Began, one of the Shirley reps on the committee as well. Jim Quinty, school committee member. Kevin Bresnahan, field committee. Kevin, I'll put your hand up so we can see it from AIR. Bob Briggs, who is our facilities director. Murray Clark, another AIR rep on the Fields Committee. I'm missing anybody. Sue Copeland, our town clerk from Town Hall, who's helped us with the election stuff that you're going to hear about later. And Steve Tully. And here comes Coach Phil Marcagiani from the football team. Oh, we have our town manager from AIR, Robert Pomprian, and our town administrator from Shirley, Mike McGovern, down here in front. And with that, I think we've introduced everybody. Well, Mrs. Dentina. Sorry, we'll wait for a few more chairs for folks. So this is Jonathan DeForge. If you don't know Jonathan, he's the chairman of the AIR Shirley Regional School Committee right now. He's also worked on, I'm sorry, Mr. O'Keefe from the Shirley Finance Committee. Sorry, I didn't see him there. So Jonathan is our chair, as I mentioned. He was the subcommittee that studied the athletic fields. He was the vice chair. I was Murray Clark, served for chair for a while before Murray took his vacation down south where he goes every winter. And I got stuck being the chair of the subcommittee after that. So I wish Murray had stuck around so I wouldn't have had to get involved in that, but it is what it is. So again, thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate your time. And I'm going to turn over to Jonathan to kind of take you through some introductory material. Peter will get up and speak a little bit to the design. He was our consultant and kind of walked us through the process. So we'll talk about how we got to the design we got to and some of the cost information. And then later on, Robert and Mike are going to talk to some of the vote and tax impact specific information. And that's basically the agenda. Any questions before we get going? All right, Jonathan.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gleason. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. So first, we'll just sort of take a step back to a review of how we got to where we are today. So back in January 2017, the school committee chartered the field subcommittee, which was a group of 9 folks, 3 school committee members, 3 Shirley residents, 3 AIR residents, to take a look at all the fields and come up with a master plan that would show a good effort to modernize the fields. So starting in February of last year through August of last year, we used the services of SMA and Peter as to develop a master plan for the site. This included other folks who were involved with this who were also coaches, the athletic directors, various administrators. Really took a lot of input from them as far as what they wanted to see and what would work and what. We'll talk about that in a little bit, about some of the things that didn't work. So again, that took 6 months to work through, probably 20 meetings or so every couple of weeks. Peter would we'd send him off with some ideas and he'd come back and tell us if they would work or not. And then we'd come back and say, well, those designs that you kind of took some liberty with, they won't work for how our school's athletic program works. And it was a great process. We came up with what we think is a great design to keep kids on campus as much as possible, with the exception of a couple sports that just can't go on campus, golf to be, for one, we're keeping all the kids on campus. So in November of 2017, the school committee was presented the final plan from the subcommittee. So the subcommittee voted 9-0 to approve the plan that you're going to see tonight. At the November vote, it was a 5-1 vote in approval of this plan. After that, December, Mr. Gleason and I did our, what we called our road shows. So we went out, we met with various groups, Parks and Rec from both towns, PTOs. We had more specific meetings with coaches. We also met with some of the athletic booster groups, the Friends of Football, various interests to get their input as well. Continued that, make awareness of the project. Then in May, we also did a couple of public forums similar to this where you're at tonight, presenting the project, getting it out there so people were aware of it before school got out. We had originally planned to go to town meeting in both towns in May, but we found that we weren't really ready at the time. We needed to make sure we had crossed our T's and dotted our I's, so this is where we're at tonight. So we've been spending the summer doing PR. We've also done reached out to a number of area businesses as sort of a fundraising aspect. Proud to report we do have 2 donors as of tonight. They are small donors, but that's okay. Every dollar counts. We're very thankful for their generosity. We're going to continue to see if there's other companies out there who may be interested in contributing. We are very cognizant that these are the companies that lots of school groups, lots of community groups hit up all the time. So we understand that they may not have a large amount to give. So like I said, we're willing to do anything. Really willing to work with it. If they do want to do something maybe over a few years, we can do that as well. And then as you all know, October 6th, we have our ballot elections. There's 2 separate ballots. One is for the project itself, one is for the debt exclusion financing in each town. So that's sort of where we got to. Dan, if you want to go over the drivers, because we're very well on this slide.
Oh, sure. So anyone who was outdoors, you might have heard me say 1964 a few times. This facility, the high school, was replaced, and the fields that were out there were built in 1964. So we have had basically no upgrades as far as the athletic program. Now, certain things were done, such as a irrigation system on the main football field, with the concession stand that is out there now, the press box that's in the bleachers. So there were some things done to make it a more kind of a manageable place for when you're hosting events, but really nothing done for the athletic program itself. The track has been resurfaced a few times, but as we talked about outside, it's badly in need of another one. And that's again because the initial building project was going to contain some aspect of a track and field improvement plan, and then it was cut in order to make sure that voters would approve, this building itself, and we wouldn't put it at risk by introducing the fields at the time. And again, that's because the state reimburses you tens of millions of dollars on a building, they reimburse you 0 on an outdoor athletic facility, which I find odd because they'll do gyms and locker rooms and weight rooms and anything inside, but outdoors, you're on your own. So the softball field was a really great thing that the Penards and Conrad Donnell put a lot of volunteer effort time. The boosters contributed some money, so they were able to bring that sport back on campus. But that was a volunteer effort. Nothing else has been done for the athletic program itself. So again, in 1964, think back to then, the Beatles were popular, Ford Mustang was a great car. But soccer was not on anybody's mind. Soccer is now one of the most popular sports in any high school, and ours it is, that we're no different. Mr. Kendall talked about some numbers outside. He's got like 48 kids, 24 girls, 24 boys in the middle school, just at the middle school. We've brought a few middle school kids up here to actually play JV, because they're advanced players, and the JV team here needed a few extra boys. But other than that, we have about 70 high school kids, boys and girls, high school, JV and varsity teams playing soccer. And they have no field to play on. Right? We've taken a baseball field and put some lines on it, but it's not a soccer field. There's a football field that Mr. Kendall is probably going to have to play a few games on as he's losing daylight. He's had a lot of rainouts, and so we've got to have to stack a couple games simultaneously out there somehow, so probably going to start using that football field, which is going to take a little extra use. But again, in lacrosse, we don't have a lacrosse team today, but what we're trying to propose here is a little bit of future-proofing. Once you build a synthetic turf field wide enough for soccer, it's wide enough for anything. Soccer is the widest sport. So football fits on that, lacrosse fits on that, field hockey fits on that. So if those sports come later on down the line, as our enrollment grows and the popularity of those sports grows, we could add them very easily to the turf field. We could have field hockey be another fall sport. And then we'd be able to also add lacrosse day in the spring. We do have lacrosse today, but it's co-op with Bromfield. They're the host school, so our kids have to go over to Bromfield for that sport. You know, it's possible someday we might host our own. So we're trying to do this as like, this is the field for the next 50 years. We got 54 years out of what's out there. Let's build something for the next 50 years. It can be a little bit future-proof and that it has enough facility, enough space out there to move sports around and take advantage of the space we have. We also have a big issue with Americans with Disabilities Act. So if you're not familiar with that, that was passed in 1990. As I've learned from just some research and talking to our air building inspector, Charlie Schultz, there's not a grandfather clause. It's not that nothing's been done out there because you're a grandfather, but the law does have some flexibility for certain spaces that you do not absolutely have to do something unless you do something major to it. This project we propose would be a major construction that would trigger Americans with Disabilities Act compliance, which we think is the right thing to do. So that means handicap accessible bleachers, water fountains, and a restroom, minimally outdoors at the field itself. Today we have people come in to use the high school. It's a long walk. It's a weird layout. I wasn't here in '64. I don't know why they put the home field on the far side. Home field should be on the other side. We are going to flip it in this proposed plan. We'll talk about that later. But the ADA thing is a major issue. I think we really need to address that. Growth. So I mentioned that we've got a lot more students here now. We built this beautiful school. So we have 30% growth, more than 30% growth in enrollment. So that is what prompted the JV teams for soccer to be added. Before we had boys and girls varsity, we didn't really have JV sports there, so those got added. Mr. Kendall mentioned outside he's getting pretty close to what is now known as a JV2 team. He's called freshmen, but you know, sometimes you might take a sophomore who may not be quite as good and put the freshman on JV2, but they get to play. Especially on the girls' side, there's that much interest in the sport that we could potentially look at that. So we've got to take care of having facilities that takes care of the growth here. We've already talked about soccer. And again, I mentioned the future proofing too, right? Things like lacrosse that could be added if we have this multi-sport, multi-use turf field out there. And then safety. If you're on the tour, we talked a lot about the jumping pits that are on the side of the track, especially the unused pole vault area that is only about 2 feet off of the current soccer lines that have been drawn and only about maybe 5 feet off of football. Coach Mark Johnny is here from the football team. He can talk to you better than me, but he said kids, you know, get tackled and end up with a face full of sands in the sand pits. I was talking to a parent the other night. His second child that played football graduated last year. He told his boys, if you get near that sideline, go down. Don't try to fight through a tackle and get pushed out of bounds and end up on those pits. I mean, the father was telling me this Friday night at the game. So it's a real safety issue out there, not only on the home side, the current home side, but there's a long jump pit on the other side. You won't see that anywhere else in a high school track and field stadium. It's, again, 1964 design. It was built for football and track and field. That's all it was built for. Mr. Kendall, I mean, you've been around North Central Mass. Steve used to work as Worcester Telegram as a sports writer, covered football games all over Central Mass on Friday nights and outdoors. Correct me if I'm wrong, you said you've never seen any.
I worked for the Herald too, so I covered Eastern Mass too, and I didn't see anything that way like that either.
So it's a safety issue. It's not a modern design. It's because it's a real problem. Other things with safety, we have these huge water drains, the drainage system. Peter can talk to later. There's more of a French drain that would be between the turf and the track, and both are kind of tapered so the water runs that way. Today there's these big, huge steel drains. People on the tour saw them, cast iron rather, drains. So that's a safety issue. It's not very far off the field at all, at both ends and in the middle. We talked about the soccer field being on the baseball field. Part of it goes through the clay. Mr. Kendall canceled the game last week after rain because we went and walked in. He was sinking in about an inch or so, and there was all water there. And we've had a kid who broke his ankle last year, so he decided not to play the game that day. Our JV teams, they go to Bromfield and play on their field because it's grass field and drains. It's fairly new. But we couldn't play a home varsity game because of that. So what else? So phys ed classes and several paid Hilltop events use that facility during the year, so it's not ideal to be sending those kids out onto that field with those issues as well. Then of course I talked about the ADA issues, so it's not safe for our handicapped folks.
Okay, so why are we looking to do this now? As Dan has mentioned, the field aspect of the high school project was omitted then. It was not to the scale that what we are showing tonight, but it was indeed omitted just to make sure that the academic building itself was put through and voted. So this project would complete the high school project. As it works out, the debt, if approved, would be coterminous with the high school as well, so that would, we sort of finance it that way, hoping that we could make the whole project come together. Other schools recently have done major upgrades to their high schools, and have, in the process have included fields in their projects. Examples of that are Littleton, and then Littleton actually did an extra project afterwards at Alumni Field to renovate their project into a turf field. So they have, their football field is actually off-site. Groton Dunstable, when they redid the high school in the early 2000s, built the new, they included fields as well. And they are going through a project right now to raise money to replace their natural turf field with a synthetic turf field, just to increase the playability. Lunenburg, they were able to use the site of their former middle and high school as new fields, so they have new fields out front. They also replaced their synthetic turf fields during this latest renovation. And North Middlesex, they have gotten, they just got a brand new high school in the last couple of years. They included their fields as well. They got all new fields all around the school. And then as sort of an upgrade, they took on a project. They were going to have a natural turf football field. They were able to secure some additional financing that allowed them to have a synthetic turf field. As we've talked about, the track is in need of a resurfacing. The jumping pits as well need to be fixed. And really, and this was a ideal that came out of the field committee. They decided as a committee that we would do a complete overhaul of the fields. They did not. They chose that. They thought that doing it piecemeal would mean, one, higher costs, and two, that we might do one or two of the projects and never finish the third, fourth, or fifth. So the committee felt that for those reasons, they didn't want to have to be coming back to the voters multiple times for amounts of money related to the fields, that we'll do it all over the project. Let's find a solution that fits, that makes it, we come to the voters one time looking for approval, and then really solves the needs of our school. So this was a picture from 1964 when the high school was dedicated. As you can see, it's old enough that it would work. That Page and Hilltop are two separate schools that had been joined. That was done in 1980. And you can see the track is still in the exact same spot, same shape. Baseball field, same place. There was no softball field. There's a drop off and some ledge there. Tennis courts, and then the old shape of the building, as I'm sure as many of you may be familiar with. And here's our current wing. We're right about here now. So it's again, we've harped on 1964, but this is this is what was there then and what we have now. So I will turn it over to Peter now, and he'll walk you through sort of where we're at now, and then where we're headed to. Thank you, sir.
Pardon me. I forgot how many meetings we did have, and I think it's a testament. This was not a process of 1 or 2 or 3 meetings. It really was, for me, it was enjoyable. One of my prerequisites is to have fun, and I did have quite a bit of fun in this process. Pardon me. Again, my name is Peter Lukasik. I'm a landscape architect. I work for Sims Manning McKee Associates, SMA. We do a lot of K through 12 schools. I do a lot of high schools. So my experience with high schools and integrating the fields is fairly extensive. And I was able to bring that to the committee as the committee challenged me on some how do we do that, how do we do this. I was able to bring real life installations and some of the pros and cons in each portion. So it was a long process, but it was a very well vetted process. And when you see the master plan, which is depicted here, you might say, but there doesn't seem to be anything that dramatic. It is quite dramatic because we tested any number of ways, any number of orientations, any number of options. And this really is the best one. I'll try to walk it through with you. It is the optimal option to allow for the maximum amount of fields, given essentially a very tight site. You might not think that when you walk out. As you know, right now, what we did was, this is simply an illustrative, hopefully, which one is this?
Red line right in the middle.
Red line. There, thank you. So what we did was, it's an illustrative. We superimposed the new school with the new parking and the new circulation connecting in here. And this is essentially the existing portions in here. So really quickly, there's your facility right now. It's a 6-lane track. There's your straight. Your home field is on the west side, the existing baseball field, and you can see the limits are really on the edge in here, and then the softball field. And what's not depicted here is that soccer field sort of gets overlaid in that area. So essentially you have what's 2 fields. I think one of the things I really want to draw your attention to is this very elongated facility. It was absolutely the best thing you did in 1964. There were only 2 sort of sports, track and field. In football, they fit wonderfully, and there were hundreds, if not thousands of these throughout the United States. This is what you built. This is what happened in here. 30, 40 years gone by, a number of things, a number of really crucial items happened, and that is that the advent of more people participating in sports, and then, of course, girls participating in equal nature. So overnight, you all of a sudden double the need, the use, and so on. That's a really crucial item because grass and turf fields is one of the crucial items. Grass and turf fields, or natural turf, just don't withstand that kind of use. They start getting matted down, erosion occurs, and then eventually safety issues occur as you wind up compacting the soils and so on. And most, if not all, schools are really tested to the limit. You're not unique. Every school, that's always the number one complaint. More fields, how can we get more kids on site with more work. So we went through a whole process. I'm going to see, and then a couple of things. I think that's the listing of what we were trying to do and what we have existing now. It's a football field with a 6-lane track. I'll tell you what that means in a second. Baseball, softball, lower practice field. That's this area in here, which grades off. It's pretty small. It's a practice field. That's all it is right now. And that turned out to be quite a nice element later on, which we can get to, in soccer field that uses this area in here. What we did, this is essentially what the master plan is. This is all the elements that we've incorporated and viewed in here. One of the things I want to really point out to you, you can see how much wider the track facility is. What we're doing in here is called a 6-lane track with an 8-lane straight, and that is there's 6 lanes all the way around here, which is what you have now, but this portion, which is the straight component, which is the home field side, that's for the 100 and for 110 hurdles and other elements. It just allows for better spectator, better competitive element. This has essentially become the standard. Not too long ago, this was a bit of a luxury. People didn't want to, either didn't have the space or didn't want to pay for those additional 2 lanes. It's basically become standard, and this is what we do now. And the next level at high school is we're reaching an 8-lane track. Very, very few places have done that. But what happens is here is, if I can go back just to really emphasize that, you can see very sharp turn. I ran the 200, it's called yards then, not meters. I was a pretty good curve runner. This is a pretty tight curve, but you have pretty natural. You've got that football field in here. What you have now is a much wider radius in there. And what that really allows is the use of what I refer to as multi-purpose fields. As noted earlier, it allows for definitely soccer, but it allows for lacrosse, field hockey, and of course football. Football, amazingly, is one of the easier sports because of its narrowness. The other 3 sports have dimensions, but those dimensions can be varied, and so that gives us a little bit more ability to do that. And this is really crucial. This has become the new standard. In a multi-purpose field, whether it's a natural turf field or whether it's a synthetic turf field. I've had the opportunity, we're actually completing North Middlesex. It's not completed. The school portion is completed. The site is not. They elected not to put a synthetic turf field in the original budget. However, they designed it, or we designed it, I should say, with this kind of track facility, this sort of width to accommodate all the sports in there. It's going to be a natural turf field. They have since acquired additional monies and are going to replace that in the next month or 2 weeks, or not replace it, but install the synthetic turf field. This is really quite crucial in doing this. And then what you have is what's called D-rings, and that's just what it really means, sort of the end of those things that look like these. And you have the ability to have the high, this is also rubberized asphalt, or a track material that we would incorporate. And you have a high jump and a pole vault in here. This is where you put your long jump, triple jump, if you don't have any other areas. Sometimes you kick it to the outside, but you can place it in there. A little bit shorter than you might have it, but for the few people Go ahead.
Where do the other throwing events go?
The throwing events would then, the shot is the easiest one. We were always able to do that. What we were examining is the discus being placed in here, which is a practice area, or in here, and same thing with javelin. Javelin would be incorporated in this area here.
So the javelin would be actually down in the practice, lower practice?
We could run the javelin. Well, that you're asking a very interesting question, because earlier on, when we were exploring many instances, we're going to try to put all the throwing events in the lower area.
How do you coordinate athletes that have to run and then throw
Correct.
and then run?
And that was a crucial question. So although this really accommodated very easily, I think that was one of the very crucial pieces that the committee said, yes, that's easy. However, our student body participates in multi-events. So maybe you're an individual that's throwing. For some reason, maybe you're a 400 runner. It's not unusual. Maybe at the college level, it's unusual, but at the high school level. So the idea is, let's not do that. Let's bring them much closer and allow for those throwing events.
So you can't have a track meet and a baseball game at the same time?
That would be the crucial one. I think we were talking about the coordination issue.
Or there's soccer, because there's two soccer.
Correct.
Well,
Soccer's
soccer's in the fall.
Soccer's in the fall, so these are spring. So that's one of the crucial items. It's the discus and track, and that's a coordination of, this would be one of the many sort of field elements. Who's practicing when, who's involved in one portion. So that would be part of, unfortunately, the athletic director. I say unfortunately because he'll be dealt with that portion of it. I won't.
I already can't do cross-country.
If I could just add too, that was sort of where this extra soccer field came from.
Right.
Right there, was designed to be, that was designed to be a multi-purpose field as well, so that we could do throwing events there as well. That was one of the big concerns.
I mean, you're talking about 5 minutes to go from the hurdles to javelin to that.
But those sports aren't done at those events aren't at the same time, right? All the field events happen first, the throwing and the jumps. Then when those events are done, you move into the running part.
Some of that is simultaneously. There's some coordination
They
issues.
do overlap.
Yeah, there is some overlap, some not, and there's accommodations for that. It's what occurs in a tight site. However, one of the key elements, as opposed to, I think, this distance was great, and although we demonstrated some schools having that distance, it was clearly not the objective of this committee. That was a very clear point, and that's why we took that softball field, which is right here, developed a much better softball field. Oh, excellent! A much better softball field condition in here, and more importantly,
No, it's better the
Oh,
other
I
way.
thought you had a question. That was a really good question. You were enthusiastic. All right. You sure you don't have a question?
Not yet.
Okay. Maybe more significantly is sort of the visual connection between the facilities. Obviously down here, there's quite a great difference. And I think there was almost that never mind the distance, was a psychological element too. So the throwing events have always been one of the more crucial pieces in here. If you build a facility like this and keep the turf in, then it doesn't really matter. You can continue to do that. We also explored, I mean, this was on and on. I don't want to take up that much of your time to be specific, but these are the kind of questions the committee said, all right, can we have throwing events on it? You can have a discus on a synthetic turf field. It isn't the worst thing in the world. High school, yeah, because they don't throw very well, so there may be some damage incurred. Even the javelin can be thrown in here. Not a great idea, as you can imagine, just sort of poking holes in that synthetic turf field. Can it be done? Yes. Do we recommend it? No.
So Jonathan mentioned some of the coaches were advisors. Chris Donovan and Mike Seguin from the track staff were advisors to the committee in this. They weren't thrilled with that because today everything's in that contained area. But they know the other benefits the other sports will get, especially soccer, so they felt it was a reasonable sacrifice for them. We also talked about, we might be able to add an assistant coach stipend into the budget so that another coach could be down in that throwing area, there's coordination going on. So they grew to accept it and realizing that the overall benefits. So this wasn't just the committee doesn't know anything about track and field. Mike and Chris were members of the advisory committee for that. And Peter has extensive background in track and field.
It's a personal passion of mine, so I sort of prejudice myself toward the track events as opposed to the others, but that's a separate item. So very quickly, let me just go through some of the other items. A couple of other crucial pieces. So there's your facility, new track facility with a synthetic turf field. We took the bleachers were on this side. We pushed this a little bit. You're never going to really see this in this plan, but this sort of edged a little bit here. We now put a bleacher facility in here. And then there's this sort of plaza-like quality, which means that as you park in here, you could enter through here. It's a plaza. There'd be like a ticket booth in here. And this is what we refer to as the concession stand and restroom facilities. And I'll tell you in a second why that's needed. We also have lights. You have an eight-pole system, virtually antiquated. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find 8 poles anywhere in Massachusetts anymore, at least to my knowledge. Most of them are 4-pole systems, very efficient. We're doing LED-type lights now. You can do great things with that. Get the amount of foot candles, have a great lighting network in here. The restaurant, I don't know why I want to call it, the restroom concession stand facilities is a singular building. It actually could expand a little bit. The concession stand and the storage is an option. The restrooms are not. A number of years ago, plumbing codes required points of assembly not to have facilities with an excess of 300-400 feet, which means when you have bleachers in here, you can no longer require people to go all the way back in that area. So you have to build a restroom facility. That in turn is predicated on how many bleacher seats you have. More bleachers and more assembly, obviously more toilets. Just simply that's how it's counted. It's pure plumbing code, that's all you need to do. However, once you build it, if any of you have done any additions or built any house, once you build that much, it doesn't cost too much more to add some elements. So a concession stand can go in there, storage facilities can go in there. That really is dependent on the next phase as you expand on. This is simply a master plan. This is a guide to the next phase where you would engineer and construct this item. And we also, as a result, you get this sort of plaza-like congregation area. Any of you that attended high school games, there's half as much interplay between the kids as there are watching the sports. In fact, they may not even know what sports being played. I would venture to guess. At least the ones I attended with my daughters, so I recall. So it gives you that sort of congregation area in here. We flipped it over. A key element is that the baseball field didn't really move. You could sort of see by yourself that if you took that baseball field, not too many places in here. We tried flipping it, trying in different directions. This is really the optimal area, sort of keeping it in that same portion. We would enhance that, get some fencing, get some dugouts, new benches, freshen up. And there may be some soils problems, some drainage problems, which also we repair in this instance. What we're alluding to here is a retaining wall. And we don't really know if we're going to need it or not, but we included it just to get the cost in. And why we did that is we wanted to get a better outfield, but more than that, you can see that soccer field, it goes off the skinned-in field. Really sort of a dangerous element. Again, there's many schools that play with that, but the change in surface when you're in cleats is prohibitively dangerous. It really is. If you want it even a little further off, what we call a runoff, and that's an area of 5-10 feet away from the end line. Another really, really crucial piece, so it takes a couple of things in here. We'll see if we need that. We're hoping that we can just sort of use the fill from excavations along these sort of places and expand this area and make this work. The retaining wall, if it has to be built, it's built. It really gives you the dividends of a real soccer field. And so we're looking at that. We took that softball field and put it down in here. And we did a couple of things in here. One is it's a nice softball field in here, but over here it really gets sort of an equal to the baseball field. It can be enhanced, totally redesigned, has a little bit more down the outfield lines, gives you a little bit greater depth if you want. That line right there represents about 250 feet. That's about what a softball field home run or end line is in there. And what we're doing here is because it's pretty vegetated in here, we have to do two things. One is to get you down here. If you go in the back, there's this turnaround really, which is an emergency turnaround for fire trucks and so on. But it would enable you to sort of drop off maybe for softball. They can come down here. There's also a path that wends its way down through here. You can barely see it. That's ADA accessibility. We provide for every field the ability for every individual to access those areas and in turn access at least one of the benches. So what you don't see in here is one of these will have a pathway that gets it in here, but this is maybe more dramatic. We also are saying, look, let's get more of a physical presence. Really nice, I mean, there's a lot of heavy vegetation here, and we go back. This is obviously an illustrative, but you would know that there's a high school over here right now if you went down there. So key element is let's really selectively thin and grade this area out, maybe replant it, and now you have a physical and visual connection, an important element about that. So a couple of key elements here is brand new multi-purpose field facility here, but 1, 2, 3, what I refer to as a multi-purpose field. So you get one additional field in here, which as you expand both to soccer or any other portions, or you allow JV and senior practices and so on, and to a certain extent, a smaller field, there's an overlay field in here. It could be used as just sort of practices or sort of, I hate saying half-court games, but just quick drills that can occur here while maybe something else is occurring at the upper fields and so on. So,
That's the flyby, it'll start in just a second.
oh, okay.
On its own.
There we go. Oh, super. I haven't seen this in a while.
So
I saw it a lot before, believe me.
So this is, you're over Page Hilltop right now.
Right,
This
looking
is-
down.
And keep in mind, we don't use the road like it's illustrated.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, don't use that road.
But
And so now you're sort of over the parking lot.
there's
and
a
then
baseball field. There's the edge of the school. You turn around right in there.
You can also see, so there are bleachers that face, you got the dark square, which is the multi-use building, and then you have bleachers for baseball, and then you have the larger bleachers for the multi-purpose field, and you can see in the back the ADA compliancy ramps, so that you can get up and use the press box and access the bleachers as well.
Where are
So
the bleachers for the baseball?
there aren't.
Right behind the dugout.
Right here.
Yes.
But what we're doing is right off that plaza, there's a space between the concession stand and there's maybe a cascading level of bleachers right there, which would be behind the visitors. I'm sorry, besides the home side, and there's home plate. So it's right there. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay.
The other thing is baseball generally, baseball and softball, if you attend, at least this part, unless you're down in Florida or California, is not, it's, you know, let's be honest about it, it's maybe 50 people, mostly parents and friends and things. So what you do is you get sort of what we refer to as temporary bleachers. They hold about 50, but more than anything, people just get their lawn chairs out, spread out really nicely along each of the field. We're not designing that in there, but that's generally what happens in those. Same thing with some of the other sports. You know, soccer, lacrosse, and so on, they may get, unless you're a real powerhouse, you get about 200 kids coming in, or potentially spectators. This bleacher system, by the way, would be, right now this demonstrates about 500 bleachers plus the press box. It would be elevated. We always recommend an elevated portion. It's only elevated by 3.5 or so feet. They're all ADA compliant. And what that means is the first row, there's cutouts for the company seating. You don't really have that. You do not have that right now. You do not have ADA compliance. You have some safety issues. Nothing really dangerous, but it is a safety issue. So everything in here, we would subscribe to MAAB, National ADA standards. So, where are we? Magnitude of cost. I can barely read that. Magnitude of costs are what they are. They are a very educated guess based on our experience. We use cost estimators, our current experience and so on, of what it's running, these big globular numbers. So, as you can see, is the mobilization, which that just means you have to get a contractor on board, they move on, they put in a trailer, they put in fencing. This is their cost. You have to pay for them to just simply get on the site. And so it's just monies that unfortunately don't go to the project itself, but are part of the construction portion. The track and plaza, we're looking at about $2 million. It isn't simply just a track facility. We're talking about 2D rings here. And what we would recommend is a fence, usually a very small 42-inch high fence. And what that does is really just keep spectators inadvertently going onto the field, the semblance of security. And then usually another security fence all the way around. That's maybe an 8-foot fence. And so you put that in. We're talking about this plaza area, the long jump pits, and so on. So all that is in the neighborhood of $2 million. What do we need to do that? You have to demo it. So what you don't see is a demolition cost. That's sort of buried in that number. What you have out there, you have to take it out, truck it out. We're going to have to excavate soil. So this is why we're saying magnitude of cost. Is it is it 2.1 million or is it 1.9 million? We'll only know during the construction costs, when cost estimates come in. Is it 2.5 million? No, it should not be. I should say at the time that we came with, these are very, very serious numbers that are associated with current prices that we've experienced. So that's in there. I'm sorry. Apologize. Synthetic turf field. So synthetic turf field is in the neighborhood, I can tell you right now, is closer to 1.2 million. And so why do I have 1.5 million? I have some unknown costs. I don't really know what the soils are in there. And so just so you can appreciate it, synthetic turf field is, all it is a carpet, just like this carpet. And this carpet costs you $30 a square yard or whatever. But there's a lot of concrete underneath, there's footings and foundation. In a synthetic turf field, there's anywhere from 24 to 36 inches of below grade material. And some of that is comprised of drainage, and that's where the cost really goes up. So you've got drainage element. It isn't so much the drainage up coming in this way, it's the drainage coming up this way. Because if drainage comes in there and winter takes in, and you have freeze thaw on a synthetic turf field, you've just lost a lot of money. And that's really sort of your insurance. There's another 12 inches of what's referred to as dynamic stone. And up until a very short period of time, that was really your cushioning agent. So you had the synthetic turf field with the black pellets, as you might say, we now have other portions. That synthetic turf field took the absorption. What is occurring now is that they're going to synthetic turf field, what's referred to as a pad. So there's a pad right underneath, again like a rug, to soften the blow. The dynamic stone is turned around. So I would envision that that's the sort of sandwich, so to speak, that this project would purchase and install. So that's synthetic turf. Bleachers, pretty straightforward. That's sort of a square foot price. More bleacher and press box, by the way. You want more seats, more money. Less seats, less money. Pretty straightforward. Concession stand's the big one. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's always a lot of money, but it's construction, it's architecture, it's footings, it's pretty straightforward costs on there that can get decreased or increased, nothing dramatic, but it's still a possibility. Lighting, pretty straightforward. It's a four system. Not too long ago, in fact, probably a year ago, it was down in the 325, 350 range. It's going up very quickly. We just bid out Somerville, and we have a 4-pole system. And it came in literally at 409, 410. So you can see that price is going up in there. A little bit of it is going to LED lighting. So just so you can appreciate it, these things are pretty high up. You have warranties and guarantees, and you have to relamp it. So you relamp it every 10 years, which costs you maybe anywhere from 20 to 25,000. You can get a special truck, they relamp it, fine tune it, and so on. You go to LED, 25, 30 years, 40 years maybe. Nobody knows what it's saying. So we know it's 25 to 30 years minimum, probably more. Plus it's a better lighting system, far less expensive, far more sustainable. So
Peter, before we move on from that, so there's reality going on right now. We had about 6 or 8 bulbs out last week at our home game.
4 were out and 2 were completely turned around because of the wind that came.
Okay, and so
They're
Mr.
being
Flagg,
replaced tomorrow, I believe.
yeah, Mr. Flagg, I think is the tree company's going to come in with his bucket and volunteer some time to get those lamps in there.
Yeah, and if it's a little bit windy, they ain't going up. So, and then we lower and upper field site improvements, and that's simply just everything in here. We're working on this area, we're working on all these areas, earth movement, new sod, etc. In a price that is a comfortable price, so there's no surprises later on, and a contingency. Always have a contingency. You know something's going to happen. Is there? We're talking about pledge material in here, whatever it is. It enables you to use that amount of money to be responsible for these kind of prices. That's really how we got to this price. It went back and forth. And I know because I come before the public, I'm sometimes sitting, I live in Acton, I sit, in your audience, and I'm looking at these numbers because I know what effect it has. So these are, I'm very comfortable with the number here, and I'm not going to guarantee it's going to go down, but I feel comfortable that if it proceeds in the next year or so, that's a number that's pretty good. It's not going to go up, but it may go down because I've got some contingencies and other elements going in there. And this is also predicated, by the way, as earlier pointed out, you get a contractor, they can do all this at one time, right? They come through here, it's going to be coordination issues, there'll be a little pain. Inevitably, one of these fields are not in use. That means the athletic director, once again, is put upon to see how they can schedule items, but it's a very short period of time for a long-term reward. If you broke these up, that this price up in here, this mobilization, which you never see, and this contingency occurs every single time. So in one sense, if you have to do it like we all do, we're all on a plan. If you have to do it over 2 or 3 things, fine. But if you can do it once, you're going to be saving a considerable amount of money, and the so-called pain is sort of really not there. So I think you've heard enough about that. So I will be more than happy. We should continue with that. Any other questions or specifics here?
What's the white area near the softball field?
Oh, that's actually, if you go in there, there's sort of a dirt road in here, so we're just sort of saying, why don't we bring in a small parking area? Again, ADA compliance, maybe maintenance and so on like that. It's actually an elegant piece of this. But you have an existing little piece in there. We came in recently to do some testing in here. Both myself and a gentleman by the name of Peter Clay, a civil engineer, who did the testing part in there. He didn't want to get involved in parking the school, getting asked questions.
What areas would be impacted with the mobilization of the site and all your vendors? Would it interrupt Page Hilltop, the high school parking lots? Would they set up on-site?
No, it's a very, very good question. So if any of you have gone through the experience at school, your contractor has to have trailers, lay down areas, mobilization. Or like this, they have generally large trucks, they like parking them somewhere. I don't think, and this is part of the next process, one of the nice things is they would utilize this road, or maybe even over-excavate that area and begin using this area. But I think what you're going to be doing is impacting these areas. You're not going to be impacting the school. You're not going to be impacting Page Hilltop. That'll be part of the process. They would have to be putting up fencing for security. The real question is, do you start over here and work your way backwards, or probably that's one of the best ways, because most of the work is right in here. Everything else is earth movement. You can always move the trucks back in there and so on. We're not doing deep excavation and so on. But that will be part of the process. You're going to work with the contractor, and we try to put out the best method we can. Yes?
Have you looked at the costs of ongoing maintenance and upkeep? That is, if you have additional fields in terms of seeding, resodding, it's going to have to be cut more often, relining. If we anticipate increased use, which is kind of fundamentally part of the plan, then how are maintenance costs built into that?
I think that's going to be one that's answered, but let me see if I can sort of generically. And there was a lot of discussion on that too, so we're not trying to gloss over. One of the beauties of a brand new facility, obviously you're decreasing your use. The synthetic turf field does need maintenance. People think, oh, it doesn't need any kind of maintenance. However, in a short period of time, the amount of direct usage, in other words, what you're just saying, mowing lawns, lining the work, lining various games, aerating, etc., is really anywhere from 2.5 to 5 times the cost of synthetic turf field. Synthetic turf field, what you need is you have essentially a sweeper, just to make it very simple, maybe once every couple of weeks. Just roll it up, you're fluffing up the sort of fibers and things. You do that about once a year, you clean it. It's sort of like a giant vacuum cleaner. They take all these things, sort of separate out, and put back things. And then once every 3-4 years, just in case there's an accident, you might do some more stuff. So the synthetic turf field decreases the maintenance considerably. We talked about the lighting. The track is a track, I mean, unless there's some damage associated with it. But when you look at this area, essentially that's the same amount of area when you go back. There we go. Yeah. Essentially it's the same area right in there, plus this area in here. So it isn't a dramatic increase. As far as, again, one of the advantages, not that I'm trying to continue selling this piece in here, is that these can be sewn in if it's to your advantage. So you can sew in football, or you can sew in all the lines. So they're permanent. They never have to be relined, which is, again, an athletics facility's dream. Or you might just want to sew in like football or just soccer. and then you line the other sports as they come in. That's the decision that the committee would make. So that decreases that part of the maintenance. So, I mean, it's not dramatic that you're going to say, oh yeah, there's a 10-year buyback, on maintenance. There is, however, usage, and I think there's a thing that Jonathan will discuss. So, I think with that, okay, and I'm here, so you guys can grab me if you want to, you were shy about asking a question. I'm more than happy to answer. I can go on all night, believe me.
Thank you, Peter, appreciate it. So one thing to sort of, on that, we calculated out, this will save approximately, just the synthetic turf field itself will save approximately 1 million gallons of water a year. That is, so we currently water for about 6 months out of the year, every other day for about half an hour. Forget how many gallons per minute our sprinkler heads put out, but if you do it on math, it's over 1 million gallons of water a year. And that will, as the town of Air has started to now meter what we're doing on the football field, they hadn't done this previously, there's some real savings there. So we're going to have an increased water bill, but if we can eliminate that water, and not only is it great for the environment, but it helps our maintenance costs as well. Excuse me. All right, so this year we've been watching the city of Gardner to our west. They've been going through a project. Their main field called Watkins Field was built in 1977, and like ours had not undergone any major updates or restorations or renovations since then. So we've been sort of watching what they've been doing, what they did. So they received their bids in July. What I did is I went out and I pulled the common elements to compare where we're at versus where their bids came in. So they're also doing a synthetic turf field, ringed with a track. They're doing new bleachers in a press box, some stadium lights, and they're multi-purpose building as well. So for our case, I took out the lower and upper field improvements because they're not doing it. I took out the contingency, and I also took out the site mobilization just to compare. And what you end up with is, so for our number, for the same amount of items, 5.17 million. That is, of course, an estimate. Also includes, these are 2019 construction prices. We've been advised by Peter that 5% inflation per year on the costs. So that's why we're at 7.1. So that's built into this pricing as well. And as you can see, they received 3 bids, 4.3 to 4.9 million dollars. So if you look, we are, as Peter said, he's given us numbers that he's comfortable with, and so we're not that far out from where their actuals are. That was, to me anyways, that was a good sign that we were pricing correctly, we were showing realistic prices going forward. Sorry, communities, please.
So another thing we did was we spoke to a lot of athletic directors and business managers from some various schools in the area had undergone projects. Mike Lynn over in Littleton, Pete McAuliffe, who just retired from Lunenburg, Karen Strickland from Air Moving and Storage, believe it or not, is working on turf fields at Brownfield. And she just got some disappointing news that they're not going to let her do it on campus, but she might do something over by the McCurdy track, if you know it. So anyway, just to, we're falling behind here, right? We caught up with this beautiful high school building, but the athletic fields are just way behind what our neighbors do. And these aren't big schools. These are ones that we compete against. They're in our league. Littleton we talked about, when they built the high school, they put all these new fields behind the school. I asked Mike, I said, why did you do a football field there? Why did you keep playing down at Alumni, which is where the high school used to be? He said, well, New Estate Road that runs behind the neighbors didn't want to have Friday night lights. And at the time, Littleton's football program, you think of it today, it's outstanding. It was really not very good back then. So no one was like, we need a great place for football. It was not, our football program's not very good. So they decided we'll keep playing over at Alumni. So then when the Alumni started to really deteriorate, they came up with a project to do a multi-turf field there. So Mike will tell you that, and his wife was actually an Air High graduate, they wish they were on campus for all this stuff, but they have to bus kids over to Alumni Field, again, over their current middle school, their old high school. And they played a lot of lacrosse. They also built an extra softball diamond. So Littleton has just recently done that again, 2017. Lunenburg, when they replaced their school, their high school with the middle high school on the same grounds, they pushed the school buildings to the back. They already had a turf field. They were an early adopter. 2005, they did a track and a turf field back there. The turf field, again, in 2005, you replaced them every 10 to 15 years, so they just went through when they did the high school, they did a resurfacing of the track and they replaced the synthetic turf rug. And out front, where they had taken the building down, they now have actually 2 extra grass fields to play soccer. They actually have football goal posts on them, so they could actually play football there too. Unlike Air and Shirley, where a lot of the recreational field, well, in Shirley, they're the Laura White School, most of them. In Air is Peroni Park, so they don't really need the high school over there. They are a big center of youth sports. So our campus doesn't get used as much for youth sports except for youth football. But they did need that extra space, so they were able to do that. Neshoba Tech, interesting story. Air has always paid tuition in Neshoba Tech for our kids who went up there. Shirley was a member town. And Air joined the district. They were charged the taxpayers here, was charged $500,000 buy-in to the debt structure of the district in order to get in and get that, become a member town. There are newspaper articles where Superintendent Klimkowitz was quoted afterwards saying, I took some reserves that we had from school choice monies and things we collected over the years. They took that Air $500,000 and they built a beautiful multi-sport turf field, new track, new bleachers, etc. at Neshoba Tech. And we have some kids who go up there and play sports there, and that's great. They have a great facility, but the bulk of the Air Shirley kids who play sports, they do it here. And again, we don't have a facility that comes close to that. Brownfield did something off campus over at McCurdy Park that you may have seen. They do their track meets, they do their soccer over there. It's a grass field, but again, because this thing has kind of fallen apart, they're looking at maybe turf from McCurdy. This was originally on campus, so they might do that there. North Middlesex, as Peter talked about, was a project he worked on, all new fields with the new high school. So then Dunstable, they had all the fields, and that school was built. What they're looking at now, they're doing fundraising to replace the grass in the football field with turf. So that's a fundraising effort because they already got the full facility. Taxpayers paid for that when they built the high school. They're just now trying to say, well, we want to have an artificial turf surface, and so the fundraising is taking care of that. But they've got a full, new baseball, new softball, new soccer, new football when the school was built. So I guess that's it. Yeah, as we mentioned, I think Peter and Jonathan both mentioned they're trying to move from the grass field to multi-use turf. So just a few photos of these. So this is Neshoba Tech's facility. You can see exactly what we're proposing. We've got jumping pits here at the end. You got a D-ring down here for when you do your high jump. They do have a small set of visitor side bleachers. And then of course the main bleachers here, again, handicap accessible ramps. So again, nothing, and then here's like for example, a discus shot here, outside throwing area. Nothing more than what we're proposing here. This is Littleton. So again, no track here. Their track is actually over here. That's one of the few places you'll find in Massachusetts without a track going around the field. The only one I've been able to find beside that was Hingham. Rad Sports recently did a facility for them. So the general standard is the track, but they already had a track over here. So we're going to repeat that here, but this is their new field. Again, they had extra space to put a nice little softball diamond in as well. And this is Lunenburg's. This is kind of shot from a far corner. Here's their concession stand, field house, restrooms that we're talking about. You can see they have soccer nets and a couple of girls when they took the picture out practicing for lacrosse. Nice set of bleachers and press box again, handicap accessible, turf field, track. You can see the jumping pits at the end, scoreboard down here. So these are just some examples right in the neighborhood of what we're trying to just get for our kids, and these are some neighboring towns that have that. Again, I mentioned Lunenburg, what they do with the fields out front here. So I actually asked Athletic Director McCall, so why you got a press box and a set of bleachers out here for that grass field? You already have that in the back. When would you use that? He goes, when I want to. If it's raining, I probably don't want to chew up a natural grass field. I got youth football plays out there, so I just keep playing my varsity games on the turf, but it's a beautiful fall day, and I said, why don't we play out here today? He can do it. He can move stuff around, which again takes the wear and tear off a lot of the fields, as we talked about outside on the tour for those who are out there. Those fields out there just constant use and getting natural grass getting torn up. So that's another example of Lunenburg. So I guess with that, let's do some questions. We're going to kind of shift to our town administrator, town manager, start to talk through some of the taxpayer impact in the voting process. So anything on the athletic part of it before we go into more of the administrative part? Nope. So who wants to go first?
It's, Mr. Poprion gets the honors.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. I'm Robert Poprion, the Air Town Manager. So in terms of the tax impacts for the project for air taxpayer impact. So as mentioned, the total project cost, $7,100,000. So on October 6th, the first ballot, in other words, the school committee has voted under the statute to seek to incur the debt for the project, so the $7.1 million. AIR's portion of the total project cost, $4,260,000. Our portion with interest, because the proposal for paying is a borrow, and as we all know with borrowing is interest, so is $5,746,440. The borrow period that has been proposed by the district is a 15-year borrow. And I want to thank Bill Plunkett from the district that provided the initial numbers, and AIR's finance department and assessors for verifying the numbers. The average single-family home value in AIR is $312,800. That's the average. That's based on the current assessing data. And as those of you who live in AIR know, we have a split tax rate. Shirley has a single rate, AIR has a residential rate, and a commercial industrial rate. So the median commercial industrial property value is $264,400. Therefore, the average estimated single-family home tax impact for this project is $75 per year. And over the life of the borrow, for over a 15-year period, the average estimated single-family home tax impact would be $1,125. Because we have the split rate in AIR, the median estimated commercial industrial tax impact would be $135 per year, or $2,025 over the 15 years. So as many have asked, what is the impact to you as a taxpayer, a homeowner, business owner? Again, in AIR, there you have $75 per year on the residential, $1,125 over the life of the borrow, and then the median $135 per year and $2,025 over the 15 years. Now, for those who are interested, if you'd like more financial detail and so forth, I encourage you to contact the town hall, my office, and we'd be happy to provide further detail or further information that folks may want on this impact. We also have all of this information for those that may not use computers or social media. All of this is up on the town of AIR's website and social media, but we also have hard copies of this information at the selectman's office and the town clerk's office. So are there any questions on the AIR impact before my colleague talks to you about the Shirley tax impact? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
So good evening. My name is Mike McGovern. I'm the new town administrator in Shirley. I came from the city of Lowell, and I came to a meeting a couple of months ago here about this, and we were in the process of building a brand new high school, and I thought I would never have to do this kind of thing. As the manager mentioned, total project cost is $7.1. Shirley's portion of the project is a little over $2.8 million, and with the interest, it's about $3.8 million, and once again, that's over a 15-year period. In Shirley, as the manager mentioned, we have a single rate in Shirley. We don't have the split rate. Your average single-family home value in Shirley is at $292,655. The average estimated single-family home tax impact is $113 per year. And over the life of the loan, you're looking at just under $1,700. Also the same thing for, this is on our website. If you have any questions, absolutely feel free to contact us. Our number is down at the bottom at Town Hall, 978-425-2600. More than happy to answer any questions if you have them over the next couple weeks before the election. I believe the clerk from AIR is going to talk a little bit about the election process on October 6th, so I don't want to steal her thunder, but I don't know if anybody has any other questions for me as well. That's easy.
Thank you, sir.
So quick point of interest, just because people might say, well, that's Shirley number, that air number, they're different. How did this get arrived at? In our regional agreement, we have a capital project section that says how that's going to be split between the two towns. It's partially based on enrollment, so it's the number of students from each town in the district, and is also partially on socioeconomic, factors, property values, and income of residents. So it's a 60-40 split. That's about as deep as I can get on it for you. If you've got any more questions, Mr. Plunkett could probably help you out, but that's true. So Air is picking up 60% of the cost of this. Shirley will be picking up 40% of the cost of this. The other thing, and I'm just speaking purely as a taxpayer in the town of Air, I've looked at the debt schedule for the town of Air, meaning all the debt that's on the books right now. Got that from the town accountant. It's a public document. Any of you can ask for the same thing. You'll see that in around 2022, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, the fire station is paid off. In 2026, the middle school, which is in part in the debt of both towns, is paid off. So over the portion of this, the town may come up with a project where they're going to replace some of that debt with something they want to do, but it's just speaking at a moment in time. And from the point of view of, this is the major capital project on the table right now. There is debt falling off. That means that this is the gross impact to you. It's quite likely over a number of years as things fall off that the net impact to you will be somewhat less. But again, that's a decision it's just a moment in time statement. Again, you go to town meeting, it's the spring. Each town may bring something up new that you're not anticipating today. There could be a fire truck or a DPW vehicle or whatever. As of today, if you get the debt schedule, it looks pretty favorable as you look at out years more so in Air, but there's some things in Shirley as well that I can't speak to as well, not being a resident of Shirley and a taxpayer. So speaking only as an Air taxpayer, that's something I included. I think the Air people should take a look at. Question?
Did anyone on the committee look into other sources of funding, such as, we're talking about a concession stand, but also, for the times when schools aren't in session, renting out their use of the fields for other sports. There's also just the availability of other sports around town. I guess that doesn't really bring money, but are there other things that help pay for this other than just the tax money?
So, yes. We haven't had anyone come knock down our door and say, you build it, we'll come. Mr. Gleason found out from ASRHS when they recently did their project, they were able to very quickly secure a youth soccer league paying,
about $50,000
a year to rent it. We didn't build that in. We hadn't found anyone. We didn't want to, presuppose that we would find anyone. So that's not built in. Certainly, we would be, willing to, if it's a fit for both parties, listen. That synthetic turf field can handle more playability than we can put on it as a district, just because of our size. But so if there are summer camps that want to be out there, absolutely, we'd look into renting it. We did talk to both Parks and Rec departments. They are interested in using it, but they are not ready to fully relocate to use it and maybe become a rent-paying tenant or something to that effect. Where their fields are now, they have what they need, and so they're not really inclined to move everything here yet, but they could certainly use it, and that would be another use of it. And then certainly we could rent it out, if companies, for example, wanted to rent it for team building activities or something like they could just with our auditorium, those are available as well. We also have started a fundraising aspect of this. So it started about a month ago with letters to some of the larger companies in Air, some companies on Devons, and some companies in Shirley, as I mentioned earlier. So we've got sponsorship availability from $1,000 up to, if someone wanted to buy the naming rights to the whole complex, $750,000.
That's the reaction.
Yes. So
we're hopeful. We're optimistic people.
We are optimistic. We are creative, but
They have
we're
to
not.
build a big door for their head to get through.
We could make it beautiful. Beautiful entryway into Panther Plaza. So there is that. We do plan on hitting up some of the smaller businesses as well. And then certainly we'll do what kind of becomes standard with a lot of these projects is a brick drive where, you know, individuals can buy a brick for $100 or $200. Certainly, it's, you know, a small part of the project, but it does go to help defray any costs. The other thing that Dan did mention, the town of Air is what's called a Community Preservation Act community. So there are some funds, part of your air tax dollars go into the CPC funds every year. And there are some funds, maybe some funds available to help defray air's apportionment of this. Unfortunately, the town of Shirley has never adopted the CPC aspect, so that wouldn't be something we could get out of the town of Shirley. Mr. Gleason did meet with CPC at the beginning of the month. They were interested, but they were sort of...
Well, like a lot of people who might be willing to donate, they want to see you have a project first. So we have to get through approvals at ballot and town meeting. Although we do have $2,000 pledges, and I think that the companies deserve to be recognized for what they've stepped forward before we have a project. Bacon Joy and Mr. Thomas Gibbons' law firm, they've each already pledged $1,000. We have a meeting with an individual next Friday, right, a week from tomorrow, who's a former Air resident, who's donated some money to us for some academic programs that might be interested in doing something in the field, so need to keep that name confidential for now, but he does want to come and talk to us. We've got calls and letters into several other companies as well, but again, here in Shirley, there just aren't the large companies you would find that can put up hundreds of thousands of dollars to, you know, to finance things. Like in Shrewsbury, for example, a credit union gave them $750,000, and a private citizen came forward with $250,000 if they would name it after her dad, who was deceased. And so they got $1 million in donations just between those two. That's Shrewsbury, different community, different location, on a Route 9, a lot of business, a lot of commercial activity, unfortunately. We're being pretty realistic in what we can accomplish here, but you know, we're giving it a shot, no doubt. We've been on the phone with several companies the last couple of weeks, and some said, no, we're not in a place to do that. Some said, let me think about it. And I got a couple have actually said, sure, here's $1,000. Yes, Teresa?
My peer said that synthetic turf has to be returfed within 10 years, and if so, what's the cost of that?
Right. So, pardon me. So the warranty period on turf field is 8 years, and that's sort of maximum on annual. The average lifespan that was 10, 12, depending on the use and portions. So at that point, you do have to resurface it. I was referring to that 3 feet or so. You don't have to do anything to that. You literally roll it up, and now they have ways of, for sustainability folks, that's now being taken and recycled. It's upwards of $300,000 to resurface, and that means removing it, taking it away, bringing in a new one. The idea is, and we're trying to be very prudent on this, is one of the things that some communities do is provide an escrow account, and that is over that 10, 12-year period. If you do rent out or in any way get monies for uses, put that straight in the escrow account, hopefully $50,000 a year or so, or less than that, obviously, but over 10 years, you come back and you're able to pay for it, so it's sort of keeps going on. Yeah. That is, I should have said that, but that's a crucial piece. And there's some maintenance element about the info material, but that's just sort of maintenance comes in with the annual maintenance.
The committee did talk about that in the school committee as well, but you know, until we actually have a final design and a project, you know, those kind of details, you know, like again, could we take the rental income and put that aside? Well, if we get rental income, yes, but until there's actually rental income, we can't promise that we'll be able to fund $300,000 10 years from now. But there is thought along the lines of if we rented it out to, well, actually, Mr. Kendall, you were telling me that there might be a Leominster lacrosse program interested in our field.
They're already talking about possibly using the current field.
Yeah, even the current field. So if those things materialize, we have said, okay, we could put that into an escrow fund, as Peter talked about, and that's how we would fund it. And if we could run a concession stand at a district track meet or an invitational track meet, and potentially take some of the proceeds, split that with the track team or whatever, and to pay for it towards the maintenance. So those things are definitely in discussion, and we've considered them. But again, until you actually have a final plan and you know what you can do as far as renting and talking to different people, it's hard to make promises. Margaret?
So the second part of that.
No, sorry,
question
Teresa.
is what's the resurfacing, but then the sweeping and the machines to do that, is that part of the turf?
That's part in there, yeah.
Okay.
The machine is a tow behind machine. It's in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $10,000. The other things you would just bring people in.
Okay.
It's like a large tractor lawnmower kind of thing.
Part of the project.
We folded that into.
So my question was, how much do we save on the 1 million gallons of water? Can that money money that was going into that bill?
So when we had a meeting back in August, working with Mr. Briggs, Mr. Plunkett, Jonathan had put some figures together. We don't have them here, but certainly it's
I want to
possible.
say it's $6,000. I believe is the cost. $6,000 was the figure of how much the water would cost.
Per year?
Yes, correct.
So times 10 years, that's 60.
Mhm.
Okay,
Another possible funding source, right?
okay.
So it's really not a maintenance free deal, because you have maintenance every 10 years at 300,000. So.
Right, I don't recall anyone saying it was ever maintenance free.
No, but I mean, as far as.
It's much lower. So what was the cost? We calculated a cost per hour use, and it wasn't our idea. We saw North Middlesex and Littleton had done this. And
Well, it's cost it's maintenance, cost of maintenance per hour of use. On a natural turf field, it's north of $60. On a synthetic turf field, it's no more than 12. I want to say it was 9, but 12 also comes to mind. So there's that's on, for the hours of, every year we expend on maintenance of that one field. How much does it cost us per hour? That includes water, fertilizer, lining materials, mowing,
Resodding every couple of years potentially.
reseeding water. I can certainly provide those numbers.
So aren't those all costs then that should be able to be reallocated and put aside? If we're saving all of those costs, the water and all of that, we could list those, right?
Yes, we have all those again.
And that can go towards the 300K to replace the artificial.
yeah, all those are possibilities, absolutely. But, when we have a firm project and we look at budgeting out to how to do maintenance, working with Dr. Malone, Mr. Briggs, Mr. Plunkett, certainly the school committee will work on all those details. But we've had discussions for sure on those are possibilities and things we could do, what we actually will be able to do and determine once we get there. The gentleman back here to stand up first.
One second. I'm sorry, you're in the back.
Oh, Paul.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm just curious on, you talk about the savings from the water and the irrigation and all that. You're redoing 4 times that football field throughout there. Don't you still have to use that much water, even more, to irrigate those fields?
I think Peter answered that before, that the space it doesn't change much, right? It's the same grass that's out there now for the most part.
But is it going to be irrigated?
You're referring to the irrigation. The softball field, I'm not sure that we're looking at irrigating. There's other ways of getting around it. One of the nice things about the softball field, it's a real bonus element associated with it. So you're right, there's a certain percentage that you're sort of putting over there. Again, this is a master plan, so then we don't have every single detail on it. It's not as an excuse. It's a very good point. One of the other things that's going on, we're using different kind of grasses that need less, more fescues, if you want to get really technical, as opposed to bluegrass, need less water, and so on. So we never sort of said, is that going to get irrigated or not? It could be limited to the use. I think that's part of the balancing act that we're going to be doing. Further to that, do you put in an irrigation system? Put it in, it's a cost item, obviously. That's also incorporated in there. You don't have to use the irrigation system if you're very prudent with its use and so on. And frankly, if you want me to talk about turf, I can bore the hell out of you right now. But I wouldn't irrigate during the summer. However, there's a lot of summer activities. So it's sort of, again, that balancing act. However, the summer activities theoretically will bring in money, so you can offset the irrigation. So there's this complex portion that once you get going, you'll sort of be involved in that. But during the fall and spring, you don't irrigate unless there's some unusual portions of drought that come in. You can get away with the regular rainfalls that we have. So, and who knows what's going to happen really.
Yeah. Mr. O'Keefe, sorry, still behind you, Ted.
That's all right. Age before Peter, go ahead.
I'll leave it up to Kat. Now, raise my question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. On the operational side, when we had that discussion at the meeting, the savings on the natural fields was all on labor. You didn't need the labor that's involved in doing the lawn cutting and all that kind of stuff. And you don't need that for the artificial turf. But in the discussion, it was acknowledged that you really don't save that labor because it's only a partial of one person's time. So the person's still going to work for the regional school district doing something else. So in a way, it's a technical savings, but it's not a savings overall in terms of the operational budget. Isn't that accurate?
That would be correct. His hours would be reallocated to somewhere else in the project.
But I don't recall that the labor was the most expensive, or all of it, right? We have paint, the lining processes doesn't happen again, the water that we've talked about, fertilizer, it wasn't just labor.
No,
These other savings are real.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Has there been any way to, I guess, look at the debt structure in more detail? Because if you look at it, you end up spending about $9.6 million over the course of the entire 15-year payback. And so that's like, roughly $2.5 million of interest. Is there any opportunity to, pay down a larger chunk up front, so thereby reducing the overall debt amount paid on the project? If you look at it, just in air, if you have, what was it, $1,125 per resident or something like that over the 15 years. If you were to take that same number and, multiply that times the approximately 35% more that you're paying in debt, that comes out to be like $700 something, $731 up front that you would pay. So if like every single resident were to pay $731 in year one, project's done.
Let's do it. I'll write the check. Let's do it.
We'll get you an Air Shirley shirt and start walking. So one of the interesting things here is that we did do 15 years to sort of lessen the blow per year. And it's tough because we looked at 10 years. I was up front, I wanted 10 years because I didn't want to be pushing too much into when we would have to think about replacing those items, right? You don't want to be paying for that. And it was just, I think at the time we looked at it as it's too high of a blow individually. It's one way or the other, you're paying. Certainly if we have fundraising, that will knock it off early, if we can apply it up front as well. The other sort of thing is that the school committee chose to vote for this debt. It sort of became up to the towns to pick how they wanted to fund it. They could have, if there was a free cash that they wanted to use towards their apportionment of it, they could do that. Or if there was another source of funds, they could use those funds. They both chose debt exclusion to do it. I don't know if there's anything inside of debt exclusion that can sort of help speed that process up. That would be something you guys might be able to talk to. But I think 15 years was done sort of as the balance of the usable life of some of the elements, also realizing that, as Peter has said, the underlying elements of the turf field we shouldn't need to replace anytime soon. So that, you're not financing that over past their useful life as well.
But unfortunately, the way it works is the school committee, right, asks the towns to pay for something. The towns are responsible for how they decide to fund it, so it's really not a question we can answer. You'd have to ask Robert or Mike if the towns have other financing vehicles that they could potentially come up with.
I mean, it's an equity thing, versus I think a lot of the high schools that you see being funded, some of the larger ones, what they're doing is they're going to the balloon type system. So you're paying, say, $100 in the for the first 5 years, and over that 20-year period, then you start paying the $500. And you can do it the reverse, is what you're saying, or pay more up front and everything like that. But it really comes down to an equity thing. I think I heard you mention Somerville's doing that with the balloon, and so they're backloading those payments. But it really comes down to an equity, making everybody pay an equal share over that 15-year lifespan.
Thank you. Mr. Doyle.
I'm sorry I missed the forums in May, and what I'd like to ask may have been already discussed to death back then. But it seems to me that the Page Hilltop and Laurel White schools are in desperate need of repair and renovation. I'm curious what happens to those schools if we take on this project. And why, and this is more for the school committee members in here, why did we decide to look at doing the athletic complex, prioritize that over our elementary schools?
So not prioritized. They are parallel projects that both need to be done. In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and boy, how much, we thought we'd have you out of here by...
No, keep going, Dan. I want them to hear this.
In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, schools are built with the assistance of the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA. They are ones who contributed greatly to this. That process begins with a statement of interest. The school committee is currently debating whether we submit a statement of interest for the next submission period. They don't look at anything new now until January and April of 2019. They don't start looking at them if you send it in January. You don't get any extra points for coming in early. April 6th or whatever the deadline is, they start looking at it. You wait months till the end of the year. Right now, the people that applied last year still haven't heard. That's usually October, November. Last year was about 15 projects out of 80 submitted. So the odds are kind of low that you get in. It's kind of how you rate against the cohort of other districts that apply the same time as you. They also like to spread their money around, so they don't want to give any particular district too much money relevant to another. So in fact, they just gave us this. They may penalize us for that, we don't know, but again, that they do. Public statements said they like to spread the funds around and impact as many districts as they can. So for elementary school, if we submit a statement of interest in the first quarter of the year, we wait until next October, November to hear from them if we're in. If we're in, starts another phase, 270-day phase of a lot of documentation and extra qualification, because they want to make sure your towns are actually going to vote in a positive way when the debt exclusion for that project comes up. So you're now into late 2020, and if they say, if you green light you at that point, they say you can hire a building committee, you can hire an architect firm like SMMA, you can hire an owner's project manager, and then we ask for volunteers in the community to join, and we form a building committee like the high school did. Mr. Clark was a member of that. I'm not sure, I don't want to leave anybody out who might be in the room that was on that.
So can I just interrupt? You didn't forget the feasibility study vote.
No, I was coming right to that now. There we go. So once you have your building committee, you have to go to the towns for what's called a feasibility study. And it's the MSBA's feasibility study. For the high school, if I might recall, was $750,000 they made us allocate for the feasibility study, split across the two towns. The good news is they reimburse you for, the same portion of your building reimbursement if the project later passes. So we go, that's the money that funds then what the architect firm, the OPM, and the building committee do to study what are the various options, renovations, repairs, brand new construction, etc. That process can take anywhere from 18 months to 2, 3, 4 years, depending upon how complex things get. For example, if someone come up with the idea like maybe we should look at merging Laura White and Page Hilltop into an elementary school that's regionalized, that's probably going to take a lot more time to figure out and make sure the community buys into that than if we put in ASRHS and that project is a singular project. This, if you might recall, at the beginning was a middle high school. This was not going to be just a high school. And then as the building committee went through the process, they determined that, the prices coming in from middle high school were approaching $80 million. And so they said, maybe this isn't going to work. We're not going to be able to get that much funding from these towns. And so they looked at, okay, we can move the middle. Actually, the biggest thing was the MSBA had been telling us, you need a 1,000-kid building roughly before we're going to fund anything. So we're going to get a 1,000-kid building. We have a middle high school. When we went back and said, what about a standalone high school? They said, yeah, okay. I'm like, wow, why didn't you tell us that? Months ago, would have been nice, that was an option. The building committee then went through, and again, Mr. Clark was on that committee, and he could tell you a lot more about it than I. But once they went down through that process, redesigning everything now, getting new design plans, and Peter's peers at SMA were working with us through that process. So it's a wild card in that feasibility time frame. So let's say it's 2 years, so now you're out to like 2022, 2023, before we can even think about coming to taxpayers and asking for something to be paid. Meanwhile, that facility sits and gets no investment, just continues to get worse, continues to be unsafe, continues to be an unpleasant place for people to go watch their kids play sports. So that's the way we're looking at it, is there are parallel paths, one with a really long time frame that we have no control over because that's the state, and then there's one with a very short time frame, about an 18-month time period to get this thing built, 18 to 24, just to be safe. So the high school is complete, the fields are done. Meanwhile, in parallel, we're working through the MSBA process that's going to take many more years out. And then, of course, the funding would be approved by voters in 2022, 2023, roughly. And again, that's the other thing I didn't mention. We could be turned down, right? So you apply in 2019, and come next November, they'd say, sorry, you're not in, try again next year, which pushes everything out another year. We've seen towns, Harvard, for example, just waited for years to get their elementary school put through. So again, 15 out of 80, how much percentage of that, 20-something%? That's what gets through, right? So there's a lot of risk, and if you just sit and let the athletic fields not get done after they've already been pushed out from, 2011, when the building committee built the high school, started to build the high school plans out, it just continues to deteriorate and get worse. So we figured we needed to have both on a parallel process. And again, we haven't voted on a plan yet to submit a statement of work. I highly expect we will probably do that, but I can't speak for the rest of the school committee. So it's just that you're under the state's control, the state's process, you do things the way the state wants you to, and it takes years. And so that's why we're doing it this way, it's parallel paths.
Just Dan, I think there are some needed repairs and updates that you are looking at now and that will be made to the page.
Yeah, that's why we just focused on the new project. I mean, we had a Flansburgh, it's Architects, 260-page report on our website. You'll take a look at Dr. Malone, Mr. Briggs, Mr. Plunkett have been going through that and come up with a capital plan and prioritizing various improvements we're doing. There's already been a lot of other improvements that she's made sure we did in both schools. Again, we could go through a detailed list here if you wanted to hear about it, but so there's no deferred maintenance. Something comes up, we deal with it. And then there's other things we know that we need to do working forward. So there is thank you, Kevin, for that reminder, but within this time period, we're working with the state to get maybe a big new project. We're certainly taking care of the issues that raised. And Dr. Malone, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Sure. Well, I was going to say I'd be happy to meet with anyone and talk further about what we've done at the Page Hilltop. We've done presentations in lieu of not keeping people out real late. You can reach me. I'd be happy to meet with you, talk with you on the phone, and talk to you about what we've done over the years. Mr. Plunkett and Mr. Briggs, we've done a significant amount of work to both schools, and we're very proud of that work. So, okay.
And just to add on too, at our last, 2 meetings ago, September 4th, school committee meeting, Dr. Malone, Mr. Briggs presented some more capital planning items for both elementary schools, some asbestos abatement, perhaps a suggestion of a new boiler at Page Hilltop. It was close to $500,000, I want to say, worth of maintenance between the two buildings. Okay.
No, I was just going to say too, I'd be happy to give anybody a tour of both the Laura White and Page Hilltop as well, because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to go through the school. You just hear maybe things that are being said, and so I'd love to bring anybody for a tour of both schools at any time.
Patrick, I don't want to pick on what you said, but like this term desperate need, we've heard people say they're falling down, right? That's just not true. We had this architect firm come through with some contractors for HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and again, you can go through the document. There are no structural deficiencies, nothing critical. Yes, we know sometimes the heat is uneven, and there's some kind of comfort things that are there that an old building brings to the table that we're trying to deal with until we can get to this bigger project. But there's certainly not falling down, not in desperate need, and I encourage you to read the architect's report to get more detail.
And nothing is deferred. So if there's an issue that's brought forward, or we have a heating issue, or we have a leak, the other day we had torrential flooding. Now, a lot of people experience that, which is, we do not defer any maintenance, we address it right away. And school committee supports that work, so.
Sure.
So I guess this is kind of more of like a PR sort of question. You keep saying that the elementary schools and the track are working in parallel, but then you just said that you haven't even started the elementary school process yet.
Sure, we had the architect
to me, in parallel means you're working both at the same time. If we started thinking about the track in 2017, how come our first statement of interest didn't get turned in 2018 or earlier? Why are we not even turning? I mean, the perception now that you guys have to deal with is that this is more important than the elementary schools, and you keep saying, yes, it's a parallel project. But the fact of the matter is, the high school track stuff is all done. You've got all your numbers, you've got your thing, you're ready for a vote. You haven't even submitted anything, or even, per your words, voted to approve anything, your statement of interest for the elementary schools. So how is that parallel? And I think that's the point that a lot of people are trying to get to, is that if you do something first and then you do something second, that's not a parallel process, that's a series process. The fact that the debt may be overlapping, or that the state, stuff kind of overlaps, that's one thing. But if you don't even start thinking about the elementary schools, and we've already taken a vote on doing the high school stuff, that's not parallel. So I think that's, and to me, and I think that's the point of a lot of people who keep bringing up the elementary school and why are we prioritizing? Because the fact of the matter is we are prioritizing. Unless we're doing both at the same time, we're not working in parallel.
If I may say, so we just finished the MSBA process for the high school last spring, this past spring. So we had to see that process through. You want to speak to that, Mr. Plunkett? So we wouldn't be able to apply to the pipeline where we still had an open project with the MSBA. So that's part of it. So now we've just completed last spring.
You know, it was completed this spring, so we're off the table for this year.
Right.
So we could submit next year, 2019.
So there's a process in place and a system in place, and as Mr. Gleason pointed out, we just got a project done, and 85 schools submitted last year, 15 were accepted. So you know, there's a risk, and just because we submit does not mean we're going to get accepted. So we have the Flansburgh report, we have all the information that we need to start writing a statement of interest, so we have been working on it.
Yeah, I don't want to get into semantic debate about what
Right.
parallel means. You're saying the elementary school things don't count until we submit a statement of interest. We have been working through the elementary project since we hired the Flansburgh architectural firm and had them go through both schools with a fine-tooth comb and gave us a 260-page insight. And then they actually did have, people have gone off the rails a little bit with this and said we have plans. We have no plans because that's the MSBA process. People are saying what's in the Flansburgh report are plans. No, they're the architect's estimations of a school built on a square footage that would house our enrollment based on MSBA's guidelines. That's just to give us a 2018 concept of cost to work from. So there has been work done on that, and as Dr. Bowen and Bill just stated, you can't even apply until one project's closed out. We just did that. So my definition of parallel, you may disagree, but we've been working on both simultaneously. Brenda?
Yeah, I guess I don't see that this is a priority over the elementary schools. They're both a priority. This is a project that's finishing the high school.
Thank you.
You don't build a house and not finish a landscape. Exactly. Right? So I think this is, you have to look at this.
Finishing the high school, why don't we have AC in the gym?
A lot of schools don't.
A lot of
That wasn't,
that
there are a lot of schools,
wasn't,
100.
but the high school, the gym's not new. The gym was just renovated.
But I mean, my point of that is that we have had athletes in the gym pass out from the heat. Okay, we haven't had athletes on the track pass out because the track surface wasn't done.
No, they just had shin splints and
Yeah.
knee injuries.
They tear an ACL.
And they're going to tear ACLs on the turf.
Not when
And
your foot
Jimmy
gets stuck in
Robinson
the mud.
dislocated his hip. He was out for a year on turf.
That wasn't a turf issue.
So, I mean, there are studies that say turf fields increase ACL tears. There are studies that say turf fields do nothing about that. There's studies that you can go one way or the other. My point is that even this information that we couldn't even apply until we just went through our audit, no one knew that except for the school committee. That's not being communicated.
Actually, I'm just kind of random to all this. I'm relatively new to town. It's actually all on the website. Everything that they've talked about today was actually pretty much all out
And
there.
that's why we're holding the forums.
Right.
We're all here with the same intention. It's the school committee. They certainly have the best interest of all of our schools in mind.
And again, I'd be happy to meet and talk further with you about your concerns, Mr. Gleason, Mr. Forge. But all of the information is front and center on the website. The Flansburgh report is there. And I'll just say one final thing, and I think Mrs. Copeland is going to finish on the ballot piece. But when MSBA comes and does their own assessments, and they did that last year, and 1 through 4, 1 being the best, 4 being the worst number, and they assessed both of our buildings at a 3. So we also have that report that they have when we get into that pipeline. So there's a lot of pieces to it. And again, be happy to give you more detail and discuss further at any time.
Actually, there were 2 scores. One's the learning environment, and we got 1s.
Right.
And then it's the kind of the physical structure and the fact that we have systems that we know are becoming beyond their useful life, which is why we'll probably likely do a school project. Susan, I'm sorry.
Any more questions? I know we have another part of the presentation.
A lot of that information.
If you want to
Come
come
on.
out.
All right.
Come out. Yep. 2 more
David,
questions. Mr.
Tina?
Dentino?
One statement, I've been to all of the school committee meetings where all of this detail has been discussed. It's also been on their public access. So this detail is public information. You come to the school committee meetings, you hear all this information as well.
Appreciate that. We'll take one more question over there. And then
So, to speak to the gentleman's concerns, at the end of the day, this, beginning in October, will be a political process. That is, the communities have to come together and vote as a political entity as to what they would like to see happen. I'm assuming that the vast majority of people in this room are in support of the school system, wanting good school buildings, wanting nice athletic fields, wanting a high participation rate. It does not serve the larger political goal of supporting the schools if there is infighting between, I think our money ought to go to the athletic field, I think our money ought to go to the elementary school. You are splitting yourself and arguing within yourself when the larger argument is with the community at large. The children deserve good school buildings and good playing fields. They deserve both quality athletics and a quality academic education. It's not the case that we should have one or the other. We should have both. So the community, the argument isn't within this room, or the contention isn't within this room. The contention is taking this room into the community at large and saying, this is what the schools need, writ large.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Mrs. Copeland, you are up.
No.
You get your own slide.
Huh?
You got your own slide too.
Thank you. I made it. I'm Susan Copeland, I'm the Airtown clerk, and I just wanted to review the procedures for this election. It's actually a multi-layer process that we need the voters to follow, and we're trying to get that information out there so that we all understand what's going on. One piece I want to address is the Saturday election, and it's on a long weekend. So when we were approached by the school district, myself and my colleague in Shirley, there's a process. We have to have deadlines with the state, submitting a ballot, etc. We have to have absentee ballots ready. We have to test the machines. There's a lot that goes on our end. We just had a state primary, and we also have a general election, so the state locks in our calendar when we can and cannot utilize our machines and also meet all the deadlines for elections. So that all being said, and it was preferred a Saturday. They didn't say it has to be a Saturday, it was preferred it was a Saturday. And when we sat down and looked at the calendar, trying to have the ballot finished before both towns had their fall town meetings, this was the only Saturday that I could give legally. So that's an important piece, and it was discussed, again, with the school, with the town, and what can be done legally. And so this is the date that we have, and it's an 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I do have numbers if you are interested in the difference between voter turnout on a Saturday and the voter turnout on a 13-hour day. It varies across the board. So
The 13-hour is not an option for us. So based on Massachusetts general law, Chapter 71, Section 16, subsection N, not that I've been paying much attention to that, they give you a 4 to 8 hour window. That's Mass general law.
yeah.
So we figured on a Saturday, more people have a chance to vote in an 8 hour window than they do when they're working and having something during the week. And again, the town was able to
So
accommodate us.
so giving all the different variables, this is the date that we come up with. Also a great reminder, we have a wonderful thing called absentee ballots. You can email me, you can come into my office, you can submit it through mail and get your absentee ballots done as well. So if you can't physically be there on Saturday, which most of us like to do that in the election process, we have absentee ballots. So again, it's not limiting your ability to vote. So please, if you're not able to, call my office or the Shirley Town Clerk and we can help you. So we have a 2 ballot process. So it's just going to add an extra step when you come into town hall to vote. You will have to check in twice because you have to check in for your school ballot, as we're calling, and the town ballot. So you will check in twice, receive 2 different color ballots. You'll mark your ballots, then you'll check out again twice. You'll check out with your school ballot and you'll check out with your town ballot. But both ballots will go in the same machine. And yes, the machine can figure this out, so it's possible. So we have the first, and they're just yes and no. The first, there's no write-in. Someone did ask me that recently. It's yes and no. You're gonna mark one ballot for the school and one ballot for the town. My name's on the town one, so. And mark.
As it should.
Put them in. Again, everything's on the website. All the information is there. And another point, yes means yes, no means no. I know with a lot of state and ballot questions, it can be misleading. This is straightforward. It's yes and no. Mark your ballots, put them in, and we're good. But it's just a little extra time. We do have a lot of extra workers to help with the process, but I think we should be all set. Again, if you're not there, absentee ballots, they're there. A lot of them just sitting in the vault.
And the same process is in Shirley.
Same process in Shirley. So we lined up, we even tried the best. We have different machines. We even try to get the same colors for the ballots, so it's as seamless as possible. And regarding the school ballot, that is combined in the towns. So it doesn't mean Air voted yes and Shirley voted no, or vice versa. We take all the yeses, all the nos, and that's the ballot answer.
Just for the authorizing the school committee to
yep.
borrow.
And then each town is separately voting how they are going to, or what funding mechanism they're going to use to support the project. So that's separate. So Shirley can vote for theirs, Air can vote for theirs, but the school ballot is a combined yes and no. So it doesn't, you combine it.
And again, that's Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 16.
There we go.
Not something we control.
Does anybody have any questions?
So then, there's a town meeting component that happens.
Oh, so the town meeting, so that's, yes. So the secondary part, when you have a debt exclusion, it's a two-part process. It has to first pass the ballot, or whatever order it comes in. And it does have to vote town meeting, which is a 2/3 vote that it has to pass on town meeting. So if it passes and you go to town meeting, you would then vote as well that evening to pass the debt. And if they both pass, then the towns will proceed with their borrowing or whatever mechanism that they're voting on. So that's a two-part process. So.
So is the ballot question only majority on the borrowing, or is that 2/3 too?
That's simple majority.
Majority.
That's
Just simple
typically-
majority.
What if one town votes in favor and the other town rejects it at town meeting?
Well, that would be on your debt portion. The ballot, the school ballot, which is the combination of the yeses and nos, is for the project. So it would approve the project. Then each town needs to decide how they're going to pay. So that comes down to each town. If it's approved, if I'm correct, if it's approved on the school ballot, so now that leaves the towns up to how they're going to pay for it. If the debt portion doesn't go through, then the town then has to figure out how they're going to pay for it. But if you're saying it's okay for the project, no?
No. But the school committee has agreed that if either town says no, they can't afford it, we're not going to proceed.
Sorry, there's that.
Well, on a temporary.
And then there's that.
Let me explain. So again, two parts, right? If the first ballot aggregate majority passes, that's our authorization to proceed with the debt. Normally, you can incur the debt on your timeline at any time. When we voted to incur the debt, we put a local restriction or amendment on it that says we will not proceed until both towns have their financing in place. So what could happen is what you've outlined is we could have the project approved and one town could not approve their debt. One part of it, right? There's 4 more parts we gotta get. There's 5 altogether, we gotta get 4 more with the debts. If one of those fails, those 4 fails, the project is still approved. We can come back and we can figure out financing another way, if that's debt exclusion again. or if that's whatever means to pay for it is, that can, the 16N first ballot hasn't expired, so we can come back multiple times trying to figure out the debt or the financing portion. Thank you for the question. It's an important question. But again, as Mr. Gleason said, and the spirit of it was, before we even put an amendment in, we weren't going to go forward until both towns had said, we're good, we're ready, let's do this. Just agency relationship.
Thank you, Mrs. Copeland.
Yes, sir.
The process is confusing. The fact that you're having a town meeting after the ballot. I know there's discussion with the school committees about modifying the current regional agreement. Is there thought of going back to the process that was utilized both for the middle and high school, where the town meeting is before the ballot and then the ballot afterwards? And for two reasons. One, like this project, there's been very little discussion among the general population. You know, this occurred, there were some meetings in May, I attended that, at least the one for Shirley was a handful of people.
You gotta get on Facebook.
Yeah.
It is all over Facebook.
Yeah. But the population, excluding the individuals with children, is probably fairly minimal. In the town meeting, you have a fuller discussion, and therefore people are more informed. And so the thinking is, both from a sequence, it was more logical. So is there thinking in the school committee in terms of the regionalization agreement that they're thinking about modifications, thinking of going back to that process, allowable under Chapter 70, Section 16D, rather than 16N for capital projects like this?
So the current amendment to the agreement right now would default us to 16D. With the approval of a majority of the members, we could use 16N if we so chose. But then again, it goes, so yes, that would be the default if we did a capital plan. However, as part of the debt exclusion, there is no prescribed order in which you need to do these. So in this case, that you can do the town meeting first, or you can do the ballot. Either one doesn't matter.
Correct.
And in this case, part of it was, again, we have a very busy election season. Ms. Copeland, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would have been in December looking for another ballot, correct? If we couldn't have done this weekend, we would have been out to December. You know, in full disclosure, the school committee, school district is paying for this election, right? So kudos to the towns for doubling up on this election and saving the taxpayers the money to have that yet another election sometime in December. And we're also looking to, you know, save on costs. If we can get this approved by October 22nd, we can be out the next day with requests for proposals for design services. We can be out shortly thereafter. Once design services are finalized, we can be out spring of 2019.
Peter is our expert, but I think we'd be late winter, early spring for construction.
To be out for construction, so we can start as early as you know, late spring, early summer next year. That's sort of why we're pushing to continue on, get this done as soon as possible. Impact is have as least impact on the facility as possible, and keep those costs down. So in answer to your question, we're looking at it, and you know, that's where the amendment is right now.
But the debt exclusion process, just to be clear, and Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've talked to our school attorney, the two-part debt exclusion process, ballot, town meeting, the order is immaterial. It can be in any. So if Shirley maybe used to be comfortable with town meeting first and ballot after, that's Shirley's choice. The debt exclusion law, Prop 2.5, doesn't make you do one before the other. And so that becomes a town issue. The school committee has nothing to do with how each town executes its debt exclusion.
Well, it clarifies and simplifies this if it's a D rather than N. Just as a comment.
Right, you'd have a town meeting, then a ballot, and then another town meeting potentially, instead of two ballots.
Right. So you don't have to have a separate commitment of the school committee overriding a ballot, as you're doing here, essentially. So it's a verbal commitment right now, so yeah, in spirit, following D.
We can't override the ballot. The towns get to vote on debt exclusion with a ballot and a town meeting. I'm not sure what we're talking about.
I'll leave my comments to Ray anyway.
Anything else? Dr. Malone, are we done?
I
think so. We've been here since 6 o'clock. We really appreciate a 3-hour window. And again, anybody wants to tour or call me or send an email, I'm happy to speak.
All right, thanks everybody, appreciate you coming.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Quinty wanted to speak.
I'd like to thank Mr. DeFord for the grace of allowing me to speak. I'd like to thank Mr. DeFord for the grace to allow me to speak. I promise I'll be brief, less than 3 minutes. Okay. First, a little bit to motive. I was voted to the school committee, held my hand to take an oath. My first oath is to the children of the district, pre-K to 12, to give them the best of everything that I can possibly do. My second is to the voters of the town of Shirley to make sure that there's a fiduciary trust that I have to put forward. Anything I'm going to say here is not new to the table. I was at the first couple of field committee meetings. They've done a fine job. They really have. I've waited a long time to have fields done. I graduated in 1974. They were terrible then, the layout-wise, and 50 years have not improved them at all. However, when it became clear that we were going to move forward with the field project, I spent a lot of time walking around the fields, thinking about, because this is supposed to be a 50-year plan, right? And this is the only plan that there is to vote on. There's no second plan, okay? When I started walking around, I started doing some other homework, and some of it wasn't a surprise for me. Baseball, softball is on a steep 30-year decline. Numbers have dropped. Even this year, you had a full varsity team, and we had to call up 8th graders to even play some of the JV games. The problem here, if we had 10 or 15 acres, it wouldn't even matter. I'd be fine. Just do what you got to do to keep it on campus. There was a strong feeling, and you may feel that way, and I'm okay with it, to keep as many sports as you can on campus. I don't mind that. And if you're willing to pay for it, that's okay. We don't have a lot of space. If you allow to take baseball and softball off campus, it creates a lot of space, and it allows you a situation where you can keep your existing track and resurface it. You have a grass field already that has irrigation, which means all your throwing events can stay there. And it opens up the rest for whatever design you want. The only other design issue that I had with what they did here, and it's a beautiful facility, I'll be glad to pay my taxes and pay for it if it passes, is that the current orientation of the stands is directly into the sun from the 3:30 to 5:30 time period. My daughter plays on the varsity soccer team. I went to the beautiful fields in Lunenburg. I had trouble parking because, like here, there's not a lot of parking, and I had to pull off to the side. And I walked up. It's 82 degrees out, and I saw 20 umbrellas, because when you sit in the stands to watch a soccer game, the sun is right there. And that's the orientation of the marquee field. So this is the field, this is the vote that's before you. If it passes, I'm fine with it. I'm here to tell you that if it doesn't pass, this is not the end of the story. This does not collide with elementary schools or any other projects that we're doing. I'm in it for the long haul to make sure that the athletic fields and the amenities that surround them pass. Thank you.
So you want to bus kids off of campus to go to baseball and softball every day for practice, for games? Are they going to be on the bus? They have other activities they're going to do, so who knows if they're going to make the bus? And who are you to determine that we should completely eliminate baseball and softball as one person's opinion? And as a leader in the community, now you're out there making this divisiveness. And Mr. Quinty, if I may say, you know, if we had your way, by the way, we wouldn't be in this pretty beautiful high school.
That's also not true. That's also not true.
I'm
I'm not making any choices about whether baseball is going to stay or not. I am one vote as you are one vote. And you may vote any way that you want. I don't think anybody, the lesser
At school
voting
committee,
for
did
it.
you vote yes?
What's that?
At the school committee meeting, did you vote yes for this project?
I voted no.
The first time, the second time, how did you vote? To take it to the town, it was a 5-0.
No, because I voted yes to take it to the towns because I felt the committee did due diligence and you, the people, should have the right to decide. Whether I like the project or not doesn't matter. They did their job. and you have the right to decide. That's why I voted yes to take it to the people.
So what is your point?
So what's your point now?
You decide.
To switch your vote?
I'm not switching my vote. I'm glad that this vote is going to the people. The committee has done its work, and it's at a point now where the people should be allowed to decide. I have no problem with that. I personally am voting no. Everyone here, or some people here may vote yes. I'm okay with that. It is a process. Democracy, when done well, is a messy business. I just want to make sure that this is forward so you understand what I'm saying and why I'm saying it.
I'm confused, Jim. I mean, we're friends. I
Yes.
love your family dearly. I respect you. But I do feel like you're putting it out there as a school committee member that you disagree with what the field committee is proposing for us. You say you're for the children. This is for the children.
As
So
I
I'm
said,
confused with what you're saying.
what I'm saying is that I have two responsibilities. And if I was just Jim Quinty, not on school committee, I guarantee you I'd be sitting on my hands. This is distasteful for me to do. This is a very difficult place to be, standing up here saying this. But I also have a fiduciary relationship with the people that elected me into the seat. And I have to make sure that their money is spent to the best value. I can't tell you what the most popular sports are going to be 30 years from now. But I can guarantee you it's going to be played on a rectangle.
Can we also talk about, there is nowhere for the baseball or softball to go? I know Mr. Gleason isn't here, but I believe the town parks have told you that it is not possible for us to take our baseball and softball teams off and put them in the town. They've already said no to that. And now you're creating confusion and proposing plans that are simply not feasible, and our towns have said they're not feasible. So all we hear all over Facebook, as someone mentioned, is all the confused about why other peoples that present leadership in our communities are presenting these other plans, which, by the way, we're not telling them, the towns have already said are not feasible.
The towns have not said they're not feasible.
Jeff
Right
Ross
now,
Yes, yes,
right
they
now,
did.
Parks
Both
Department.
Rec and Parks Committee did. At their meeting, they said, there's
Shirley?
not room.
the Shirley Recreation Commission is not control baseball.
Oh, okay, so you want our high school to go to Shirley to play?
May I speak? May I speak? May I speak? The Shirley Recreation does not schedule baseball. I coached baseball in this age group for many years. The fields are there. I also, when I was coaching these boys, it's the same age boys playing the same game on the same field with different uniforms. When they play during the school year, there are no games played on those fields in the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 until weekends, until the season is over. There are some practices, so there are amendments made with practice time. In all my relationships with Airfields, when I was working with them to try to schedule my team under there, over Shirley Youth Baseball with the Bert Kaufman Field, everybody has been more than accommodating to do what needs to be done. We're talking about a 6-week season. Everything else here is multi-use. We're talking about a 6-week season. Yes, sir.
I just want to quickly, a couple of points.
Yes.
Bill Manchester, I'm just in the community 3.5 years. I'm the president of the youth football. I'm also on the Shirley Youth Baseball.
Right.
I'm 24 years as a high school math teacher, 14 years as a head football coach, 3 years as a head baseball coach, 8 years as a head softball coach. One, there's no youth baseball fields that can be a varsity baseball field. That's Bert Kaufman and Peroni Park are not varsity fields. Middle school baseball made cuts last year, so I think you're right. In 25 years, baseball might look different, but we got to stop looking at it as a 54-year process. It should be 25 years, then we meet and we redo the baseball, softball complex, move them off. But that's not now. Middle school baseball made cuts, has for the last 5 years that I know about. As a high school math teacher and a coach, when you ask kids to leave, you are asking them to choose between getting extra help, meeting with their teachers, meeting with new administrators. They choose sports 100% of the time. So you are now built, what did it cost, $50, $60 million? You are then going to get kids for 6 weeks out of a 36-week school year to quickly leave campus. So you've just wasted $50 million because now you're talking, talking $7 million. So I think it goes against what you want. Again, the school is putting money, and the school committee talks about social emotional learning. You want connections with administrators, with teachers in town. So you're now taking 1/6 of the year, and it's really an 8-week season, but you're busting them out. So you're going against, you're saying, let's save $7 million, but yet waste the $50 million plus. What's the annual budget per year for a school? 25 million. So 25 million, we're gonna say 1/4 of the year, we're gonna get kids out of here. We're gonna keep spending 24 million to save 7 million. It mathematically doesn't make sense, and it's not a good long-term plan with the numbers that are in Shirley baseball, softball, and air baseball, softball. So those, I would disagree completely from my experience and what's gonna happen. I will speak at the town meeting to say the same thing I did tonight, so. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
That's